Let me do just a brief one. Vinoo and Sunny are going to talk about the solutions that they've looked at uh, while building out the system at BJ's Wholesale Club. This is fascinating because it's a true peer-to-peer story. So that if you're trying to do this kind of thing, this is the type of story that can help you look and see the pitfalls as well as the way to do things. So, Vinoo and Sunny, good to have you with us. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our session today on building container-based pipelines in AWS. My name is Vinoo Palayoor, and my role here is I'm an enterprise architect with a focus around our DevOps and cloud technologies, as well as overall architecture. So I work with a lot of our application teams and developers on building out their pipelines, their design, really the whole end-to-end lifecycle of projects here at BJ's. And I'm here with Sunny Savaliya, who is a lead IT cloud DevOps engineer. And he's also involved in helping to build out pipelines with our various different application teams across the BJ's landscape. So we're very happy to be here and share a little bit about our story with this team. So I wanted to start off with this. This is a quote from the hockey legend Wayne Gretzky, and I think he's summarized some really key themes here. So the day I stop giving is the day I stop receiving. And I think that's something very relevant to us all as DevOps professionals, because when we look at our roles, sharing and giving our time and knowledge is a key part of growing a DevOps culture in any organization. And I think that's a key theme in this whole, this whole conference is about sharing and giving our experiences to the broader community, which is what helps it grow and get better. So I think that's key. And the day I stop learning is the day I stop growing. So if you've been in DevOps and you've been working in this space for any amount of time, you know that change is constant, learning is constant. We're constantly having to pick up new things and new skills. And I think that feeds right back into the ability to give back and share that knowledge with our teams. And then finally, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think this is also another key part of our DevOps culture, which is really that, at the end of the day, we are all change agents in our organizations. And to make change, you really need to take the shots, experiment, try things out. And that's the only way that things are going to get better. So wanted to start off with that. And let's start off going through some highlights on who BJ's is as an organization. So we have 217 clubs in 16 states across, basically predominantly in the East Coast, but we are expanding as well. We have 139 gas stations, which is a very profitable area of our business. And we are a membership-based business, so growing and attracting new members is a key part of our strategy. So we have well over 5 million members and well over 25,000 employees here at BJ's. So just to talk about some of our strategic pillars, as I mentioned, we're a membership business, so attracting and retaining members is really key to our growth. Delivering value to those members to get them shopping, and making things more convenient to shop at BJ's, which is going to be a theme in a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, and also expanding our strategic footprint. So in the how we're making things more convenient for an everyday shopper at BJ's is we've got a few different mechanisms and capabilities that we're deploying in our digital organization. So, we have deployed a mobile application. It's doing very well. It has well over 1.5 million downloads. And in that mobile app, you have the capability to clip coupons. So, traditionally we're trying to move away from the paper-based coupons to digitally consumable coupons that you can clip on the mobile app, but then consume and redeem both in our clubs, but also online. And then recently we just deployed something that we're calling Express Pay, which is essentially an experience that allows a mobile app user, a BJ's mobile app user, to run in an in-club mode, and allows them to scan items in the club and then check out without having to go through any lanes or any registers or any of that. They just can basically complete the transaction on their mobile app and leave the club. And then we also offer same-day delivery. So that's something that we offer with many of our fresh and grocery-based items, so you can have that delivered right to your home. And then finally, we have something that we call BOPIC, which is the ability to shop on bjs.com and then pick up your items right in the club that's closest to you in 2 hours or less. So the main idea behind all this convenience is, as you know, we're trying to make it easier for people to shop with us, but it's also prompted an architectural shift in how we look at how we build out capabilities and infrastructure and services and really everything that we do, which is moving towards APIs and microservices, which is going to be the heart of our talk. So when we look at APIs here at BJ's, we've tried to standardize on a generic kind of pattern of how we build out these pipelines. So this is a very high level 10,000-foot view, but it's intended to show you just generally what we do. So it really all starts with our product, our DevOps and development engineering teams that define what an API is that's either going to be consumed by a mobile app or our service or our website. And then we've standardized on using Docker as a container and a footprint for how we're deploying these APIs. And that's not to say that's not the only way we are doing things. We've done quite a bit with serverless technologies and Lambda, and so we have several APIs in that space as well. But the focus here is what are we doing with containers? And so the developers are defining their applications, their dependencies, all of that, and putting that in a Docker file. And we're going to cover a lot of that more detail in the next slide. We use Bamboo, so that we have the entire Atlassian suite, and so that covers everything from Jira, Bitbucket for source control, and we use Bamboo for our CI/CD engine. And Bamboo is integrated with Nexus, so you know, the latest artifacts are checked in and versioned. We've integrated Lifecycle as well with Bamboo, so we're scanning a lot of the compiled and built artifacts and binaries through Lifecycle real time, and along with the build process, which is generating real-time dashboards that can be fed right back to the development and engineering teams. We're starting to do more with Firewall as well, so we're putting Firewall in between the developers' workstations and Nexus, so that any you know, high CVE or high risk dependencies are being pulled right into a developer's work environment or quarantined before it gets too far in the development process. And then on the right side of the equation, this is really all of our deployment environments. So we're heavily vested in the AWS platform. We are utilizing, since we're talking about containers, we're using a variety of different services. Primarily, there's three. There's Amazon ECS, which is the Elastic Container Service, which allows us to scale out our containers basically infinitely, so we can scale up, scale out. And Sunny's going to get into a lot more detail on that in the next slide. And then we use the Amazon Elastic Container Registry, which is where we store all our images. And then obviously there's EC2 under all of it, which allows us to do the appropriate auto scaling for our containers. And then down here on the bottom is we do leverage White Hat for our SAST and DAST testing. So application security testing at a code level is done through White Hat. That's plugged right into our Bitbucket repository, so we're getting real-time feedback based on those scans. And we also leverage Tenable.io from a container security perspective. So to get to a little bit more detail, I'm going to turn this over to Sunny, and he's going to break down the microservice deployment architecture in a little bit more detail.
Hey,
Hey,
Vinoo, thanks
thanks
for
for handing over to me.
I'm
I'm just
going
going
to
to
give you a
give you
couple
a
of
couple of
key
key
points that
points
we
that
have
we have
come
come
across when
across
we're
when we're
doing
doing the microservice
deployment
deployment
on
on the
AWS.
Oh,
AWS.
sorry, guys, you're going to have to turn off the microphone on one of those computers. It's echoing.
Yep, got it.
Can you hear me better now?
There you go. Now I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to cover a couple of points where I'm going to break down on how we have done the deployment of microservice on the AWS ECS environment. How can you can you,
Is it not here?
yeah, now it's good. It's good, Vinoo.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah. So we know that IT is moving at the fast pace on moving into the container world environment, right? Everybody's migrating their monolithic applications towards the microservice architecture. And we also started this journey around last year. And there are a couple of points that we came across when we started this journey. And I'm going to break down this journey on a couple of points, a couple of phases. In the first phases, we came across that, okay, we are going to use the Docker for our base, Docker for our all the applications. And first point towards the Docker, like what should be our base image? How can we make sure that we are using the right image, which is not vulnerable and which is widely used in the production environment? And for that, we used Tenable.io as our container security platform, which helped us to find out the right image and what is the perfect for our production workload to run into production environment. The second step is how I'm going to inject this, whatever developer is creating, whatever the build artifacts is going to be part of my Docker file, how I'm going to put it inside the Docker, and how I'm going to leverage that things inside the Docker, and how my developer is going to understand these things. That it's not about just developer developing the code, but they have to understand how the Docker file is working. So there was a key point that developer has to understand how the Docker is going to run inside our ECS environment and how their application is going to run on the Docker. After that, the third point is how I'm going to inject my other application monitoring that I wanted to do on what my application doing during my runtime. So those kind of things we came across while we were architecting this Docker deployment in our production environment. And we had a little bit of challenges with working with the different team. We had to sit with security, we had to sit with the developers on the day-to-day business, come up with the approach and find the middle ground. After doing all that research work, and we went into the production live environment, and the next part was how I'm going to deploy this microservice into the ECS part, where we are leveraging, as mentioned by Vinoo, we are using ECR as our private image repository, where we are storing all the images which are getting built during our build process. And after that phase is how I'm going to deploy this image into my ECS environment, where we have come across different we started with a very basic, where we just take the image and deploy into our ECS environment. And after that, we have enlarged into what should I do for auto scaling of this environment? How can I do this? What could be the process for running this application into production environment? How can I do vertical scaling and horizontal scaling? What should be my placement strategy? For that, we have decided to choose the ECS our container platform, which gives us the capability of stacking the containers vertical and horizontally without any issues. That was the main positive points for us to go with container strategies. And with that, I'm gonna hand over the mic to Vinoo, and he's gonna take over from here.
Thanks, Sunny. All right, just so to just highlight, this is a little bit about our journey and kind of how we started and where we headed, right? So when we started off, we certainly didn't have the level of detail that Sunny just went through. A lot of head banging, a lot of figuring out like how this all was going to work. We really started off here in what we call like kind of a crawl phase, where it was really all about the basics. Really, so things like, what was our Git flow going to look like? How are we going to organize our source code? Where are we going to put these images? Are we going to use ECR? Are we going to use something else? So we had to really kind of figure out that stuff. As you know now, we're very vested with AWS and we're leveraging Bamboo. We needed to figure out, okay, what kind of plugins are going to be key to use so that, we're not kind of doing a lot of custom integration. We wanted to take advantage of any plugins that are out there, and we landed on a few of those that we're still using today. And it was really all about let's figure out what that skeleton pipeline is going to look like, and just get it working. And that's what we started off doing. After we started getting that in place, we could move on to something that's more about, what you'd call continuous delivery and really integrating some of the security tooling right into the development process, which is really where the magic started to happen. And we've heard a lot in this conference today about shift left. That's really really amazing when you start seeing that coming into light. So by leveraging a lot of the goodness that comes out of the Sonatype platform, we were able to start lighting up a lot of these applications that many even of the developers didn't know that there were certain components and dependencies in place there. So when you start doing that, you start having some really good conversations. And let's face it, in the beginning, there's a lot of data that's being thrown out at you as a developer. And I mentioned we use White Hat, we use Tenable, we use Sonatype. And a lot of the beginning part of for us was really just educating ourselves on what do all these different tools really mean, and what are the metrics that they're putting out there mean, and what do I do with it as a developer? I'm trying to build out functionality. Help me to understand, what are all these different alerts and what do they mean? So, but once we got through that, we could really start seeing the value. And what was really, helpful for us to see and really enlightening is when the developers would start remediating and fixing a lot of these things completely independent of an AppSec team or a security team that was engaged. They would just fix it right out of the gate. So that was pretty amazing to start seeing that. And then we start, as we start looking ahead, these are some of the things we're trying to do, which is we heard a lot about stopping builds. We have the capability now to do that. And as developers get more comfortable with the data that's in Sonatype, they're comfortable with us stopping the build. So we want to start instituting more of that. Now that we are doing a lot with AWS. So, the ability to do blue-green deployments and A/B testing, these are things that we're starting to experiment more with. With A/B testing, we can really start being able to test certain functionality or features on our website to a certain percentage or population of users and measure that. That's very valuable data that we can start taking advantage of. And then, we're very much an ITIL-based organization, so the ability to build some artificial intelligence that's based on all this good data that's available in the pipeline, we can automate some of the change management processes that are taking place. So we can even start saying things like, hey, this is Sunny, he's a really solid developer, we know his code, we know that he's an active committer, we know what he's able to do, so we're going to allow this change to go through, right through our various test environments and right into production. That's not something we're doing today, but it's something that we're striving for, something that we're thinking about to start moving us even more forward. And really, these two arrows all the way at the right here is really what the value add is, right? So we've been able to see tremendous improvement in our agility, in our release velocity, week to week, day to day. We're able to push a lot more changes into the environment faster. And then our ability to remediate defects has gone down significantly, mainly because we're doing the remediation so far up front in the process, almost like in a sandbox environment. So if you're in UAT and you come across an application security related defect, that's much harder to fix, and it takes a lot more time to remediate than if you're in some sandbox or dev environment and you've just started to assemble your app. So that's what we've been able to see. So just to touch on some guiding principles, experiment, try different approaches. As Wayne Gretzky said, take the shots, try, fail quickly. Use plugins wherever possible. We don't want to keep reinventing the wheel. Create pipeline patterns. So we did a lot of showcasing patterns that we've built, and then give that to application teams so that they can start leveraging those same patterns. So the other one is really, this was key for us, is we don't want to just make security analysis just be a handoff or move it from one work queue to another work queue that another team needs to work on. We wanted to enable our developers to have all the information they need to remediate and fix things without having to go through security. And we've been able to achieve that, which is pretty powerful. And then obviously the pipeline is done incrementally. That goes without saying. We need to keep iterating. Like I said, when we started, we didn't have much of a pipeline, but that was okay because we knew that where we were trying to head. So looking ahead, there's some things that we're trying to do. There's a lot of things we're trying to do, but just to summarize, we're trying to automate a lot of the container scanning capabilities with Tenable. We would like to start integrating Python more into our ecosystem. So we've been doing a lot more with our data science teams, data engineering teams that rely on Python quite a bit. So we would like to start, introducing Nexus into that world, which is, a kind of a different world. But we would like to start doing that. We would like to integrate more into Jira, so having more like a tighter feedback loop back into Jira. And then I think we want to start taking advantage of maybe leveraging Nexus as a private Docker repository. So as you heard, we're using Amazon's platform as our registry, but we're exploring leveraging Docker. And then what goes hand in hand with that is really taking advantage of some of the services offered within the AWS. So, once you combine your Docker repository and Nexus, and then you have a S3 backend for those artifact binaries, it's really a better way to kind of look at that. So that's it for our slides. We are very happy to be here and share our story with you. And both Sunny and I will be on the Slack channel in a bit. So thank you.
Vinoo, hold on a second here, because I got some stuff that you had a very interesting stuff. If you want to come back on camera, that would be great, so I can see you.
Sure.
On mine. There we go. Fascinating. One of the things that stuck out in my mind is at one point you were able to get developer buy-in, but to say it's okay to break the build. I'm still seeing your screen share, by the way. I'm seeing myself on your screen share instead of you.
Is that better? Oh, how's that? Is that better?
Not yet. It says you are sharing something.
Oh, I'm still sharing the screen. Oh, one second.
Dave and Jonathan, thanks for coming in. We'll see you in just a minute or two. There we go. That's better. Seeing myself 14 times didn't help. There we go.
Okay.
So the interesting thing for me is when you said that you'd reached a point where the developer said it's okay to break the build.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? What was that tipping point?
Well, I'd say there's probably a developer or two that said it's okay to break the build, but not all of them, right? So I would say that what I meant with that comment is really that we are able to have a conversation without everybody falling off their chairs, because that they are starting to see that hey, I want clean code, right? So I was very surprised when I started seeing our development community that was so engaged with what was coming out of the Sonatype platform, for example, right? I started seeing developers that said, I don't want any red, so it was like, I don't want any red. I don't want to see any of that stuff. I want my code to be, functionally proficient, functionally doing what it's supposed to do, but I also want clean code from, a security perspective. So when you have that, and you have that type of engagement, then, having a conversation about, hey, maybe we stop the build if there's a CV score of, this, right?
What, again, going back from the developer's perspective, I just wrote a note to myself. When did they begin to trust the output? because we're also used to just getting a big dump and like, where do I start? But now your developers are starting to trust the process. How did you get them to trust the output?
I think a lot of that was, we in the beginning, I'd say it wasn't really like that. We had with Java, we have a few different types of platforms that we've built these microservices. We didn't really talk about the type of how we develop, but we predominantly use Java. We use our front end is based on Angular and Node.js. So those are predominantly the ones that the conversations we were having. With Java, it was very easy to have the conversation. We could the data and the output from the tools was very crisp and clear on what component was having what vulnerability, and I could very easily tie it together. So the developers started to get educated very quickly. So I think but when it came to like Node.js and the NPM world, it became very much more hazy. So we had to have you guys come in and really educate us on what does all this mean, right? Because there's so much dependency it's a very, very large tree when you look at the NPM ecosystem, and it filters down to so many different leaves that it was very hard to trace it. So we needed to spend some time with you guys and just understand a lot of what we were seeing. And once we did that, I think people started to get more comfortable with it.
Well, I thank you both. I'm excited to continue to follow what you're working on, because you guys are making progress, and it seems like significant progress from your slides. If you could, when you go to the Slack channel, please upload your slide deck there so people can see the deck.
Sure.
And that'd be great. Thank you both. Sonny, thank you. I see that you're off there, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.